Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of Hoop Room at Hoopsters, the League of Action Heroes. As you are aware, we try our best to address topics that are relevant and provide answers to questions that many of you are seeking but are afraid to ask. We also believe that people who are in the situation or have experienced an incident are the best advisors, and one can learn a lot from these people. Today, as part of Hoopsters League of Action Heroes discussion on rediscovering the me in the parent, you have with us Taru, an ultramarathoner, the Comrades runner, endurance artist, athlete, sorry, fitness enthusiast, ex-senior IT professional, a Fauji wife, and a mom. She tells us how running marathons help her balance work and life and become a better version of herself. She tells us how focusing on yourself as an individual improves your bond with your child, spouse, and everyone around you. And the subject of our conversation is Marathons Improved My Work-Life Balance. Welcome to the show, Taru. It's lovely to have you here.
And thank you, Bala. Good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. Taru, the first question we ask everybody is, why did you agree to come on the show?
Actually, it was very enticing. I mean, whatever I heard and whatever I read about your organization, whatever I saw there, I felt that the kind of holistic exposure that you're giving to the children and to parents, that seems very nice. And I felt that I could share a lot from my own 58 years of living experience. And maybe I thought somebody will draw some inspiration, some parent, some child to become better individuals than they already are.
Very interesting. There is a 58 years of living experience. What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that I'm 58 years old now, and anybody who lives for any number of years becomes richer in experience by whatever they're exposed to. So during our life, we are exposed to a lot of experiences, and it's very important, I feel, to be exposed to those experiences, because that is what builds our character. And I feel that is what you are also doing, that you're trying to give different kinds of experiences to children as well as to parents. In my case, I've had my own share of experiences in life, being from a middle class family and getting married to an army officer, and having a checkered career thereafter, and different types of fitness goals.
That's interesting. Okay, since you're talking about your life and your experiences, tell us a bit about yourself. You can start from your school days. Perfectly okay.
Okay, so considering that I'm 58 years old, if people can relate to the times then, the focus was used to be mostly on studies, and my parents, I belong to a typical middle-aged family. My father was a government servant and mother was a teacher. So my focus in my school life and in my engineering days was studies, mainly studies. The only extracurricular activities that I took part in were the stage related activities, elocution, dramatics and such. And then I got married to an army officer. That brought in its own share of challenges in life, switches in career, a lot of studying, continuous learning. I have one daughter as well. A lot of field postings and travel all over India. And then I got into IT, and I worked in the IT sector for about 20 years, last 14 years in just one company, where I rose from grade 2 to grade 7 or 8, it was, to an AVP level. And then I quit my job for my passion, that is fitness and running. And when I quit the job, I had a team of 250 people with me. So and my daughter, of course, is married now and she's settled in Australia. My husband has quit the army and he's joined a multinational company. So that's all about me in short.
Okay, that's interesting. Basically, it's really been a checkered life. Now, let's come to the basic thing. In India especially, a lot of people, a lot of individuals they normally lose, give up their individuality, okay, after they get married. About 50% of who they were before dies down or they give it up. And after they have a child, the rest of the 50% goes off. So what's
Yes.
your opinion on that?
Um, what you're saying is very true, and maybe it's more, the percentage could be even higher. People change a lot after they get married or have children, and that is because a lot of responsibilities come in, additional responsibilities come in. One thing I feel is that I'm talking from my own experience. What we had decided is that we are going to take our time having a child, so that we can plan such that our lives will not be impacted so much by the coming of the child that we completely give up on ourselves and we are dedicated only to looking after the child. So my daughter was born 3 years after we got married, which is not much considering the times now, but back then, about 34 years ago, this was a different kind of a different thing. So I feel that we need to plan such that we don't give up our individualities, because that can only lead to frustration. So we need to ensure that we are planning and putting that plan into action once we get married and once the child comes. The compromises are expected more of women. Looking at our society, things are changing, but they're not changing as much. Earlier women were not really working. Now women are most welcome to work, but they have to come back and take care of all the other responsibilities that they had on their shoulders even earlier. This is what is the norm. Seems to be changing, but more in the urban areas and not so much in the small towns and in the rural areas. So I think that, from in my opinion, a person needs to change, but we should not forget that we ourselves are also individuals. It's not just the other
Did
person.
anything change in your life after you got married?
Yes, a lot changed in my life, because I was kind of forced to get married early, although it was a love marriage. I had met my husband when I was in my second year of engineering, and he was doing a course here in College of Military Engineering. And times were really orthodox at that time. My parents and his parents agreed to an intercaste marriage. I am a Punjabi and he's from Andhra Pradesh. He's a Telugu. They agreed to the marriage. They agreed to the match. But what they said is, either you both stop meeting each other or you get married. Now, if the times had been different, like if I had said that to my daughter would have said, "Mom, don't be crazy." But I couldn't turn back and say that to my mom, and we decided that we would get married. So that's why I said forced to get married in a love marriage. My preference would have been to work for maybe a couple of years after completing my engineering and then get married. But then I got married a month before my engineering. So that's how that impact of marriage was. It started with my final exams of engineering, and then because he's an army officer, although he was in Pune for 3 years after we got married, because he's an army officer, he had to move around a lot, and that completely changed the scenario for me. And it was a decision that I took. I weighed the pros and cons, and I decided that because I've got married to an army officer, it was a decision, thought about decision, and I'm going to go with him wherever I go, but I'm going to also continue to work. And then the times were different again, as I said. Now we have a lot of work from home and different kinds of job opportunities and freelancing, but back then such opportunities were not available. So I decided that although I've done my engineering, I'm not going to let marriage affect me to such an extent that I sit at home. I did my B.Ed and my M.Ed, and I went into the teaching line at that point of time. So marriage did change things for me. My daughter was born, as I said, 3 years after I got married. Because I had chosen the teaching line, it was very convenient. For 1.5 years, I didn't work, but when she was 3, she started going to school, and I joined the same school. And eventually, we went to different schools, but I stuck to a school job until she was in the ninth or something. So marriage did change things for me. It also changes things in terms of handling relationships. And there it depends a lot on how your husband supports you, and your parents support you, and your in-laws support you. A lot of families I've seen that once the girl gets married, the parents wash their hands off and they say, now your sasural is your house, so you're going to stay with your in-laws, and there's no support as such so much from the parent side. I did have some support, although not too great, but yes, I did have a lot of support from my parents' side. And my husband was extremely supportive. So although I did face a few challenges, some very minor challenges in terms of cultural differences in the south, and I was from the north. Um, because my husband supported me, so whenever my mother-in-law would very small things which need not even be mentioned right now, like don't wear sleeveless stuff when you come to Hyderabad. Things like that would come up, and I found that very strange because I did not really approve of. I thought those were restrictions. I'm the rebellious kind. I go against restrictions. So I felt that was a restriction, but my husband supported me. So I guess I didn't face any problem in that manner.
Interesting. Since you've been married so long, okay, you still call him Telugu. I mean, he's not told you to call him Andrite or a Telgite. Not normally that's not supposed to be, but it's a very common, a North Indian story here. Okay, but Taru, the thing is, I'm sure you meet a lot of women around, friends around, and stuff like that. Okay, what are the issues they are facing? I mean, as they are getting out of in the marriage, I'm sure after 3, 4 years, they realize that they want to do things. So, what are the normal, common, I wouldn't call it cribbing, but small little regrets or wants in your circle?
There
Normally,
are
what happens?
all kinds of things are happening. There are women who are told not to work, get married. They're well qualified. In fact, one of my classmates, called, okay, let's not take name her. One of my classmates, she was in the metallurgy department, and she was told by her in-laws that you might have done engineering, that is fine, but we don't want you to work. So it was like, okay, it's a safety net. If required in future, sometime she would be able to work. I don't know how she would work if she'd never worked, and suddenly it would be difficult to get a job in the technical domain unless she does any courses. But that's one thing that they say, okay, you got married, you don't work. Second is when they have children and they start going to work, then a lot of people start noticing and they start saying, okay, people think that your child is going to suffer if you're not there for the child. In fact, this happened with me as well. I was teaching in a day boarding in Delhi, and my daughter at that time, excuse me, just a moment, just close the door, please. My daughter at that time was studying in another a different school, and I would come home earlier, much early, a little later as compared to her, and she would come home much earlier. Then I had to make arrangements, and we put her in a creche at that time. That was itself looked at by people as, okay, you're coming home later than her and she's going to a creche. And she was a kind of a slightly sickly child at that point of time. She would get fever and admitted in a hospital. Of course I would be concerned, but there was a time when I had an important commitment in school, and she was running 105 temperature and she was admitted in the hospital. For some time I left her in the hospital and I went to school, and there was so much noise about it, that your daughter is running so much temperature and you're in the school. I tried to explain that she is in the care of experts over there. There are nurses and doctors taking care of her. Here also there's something important I need to take care of. I've been on leave for so long, but this is one such challenge that people face. One of my friends, her daughter wasn't doing too well in mathematics, and this lady had started, she took up running. So she had just started running, and she used to tell me how she's taunted at home about going for runs while her daughter is failing in mathematics. Now, there is no real correlation because she's going for a run early in the morning, and the daughter's going to school and she's taking care of whatever teaching she can for her daughter. And her daughter is a brilliant person now. That failing in mathematics has not really helped her growth so much. Her other exposure that was given to her really helped. Many such challenges come to my mind.
But see, these are the okay. These are stuff which the world puts on you. But what about the individuals themselves? I know individuals who have, who stopped reading, who have stopped, having their hobby, or stopped even singing, or whatever they used to enjoy. I'm talking of which they can do on their own.
Okay. Okay.
They give
So
it
you're
up.
the
But why is this?
intrinsic things. Yeah, the intrinsic things that happen, I think mainly they happen because of this guilt factor. We have been brought up, the girls and the women are brought up in such a manner in our culture that they start feeling guilty the moment they start giving attention to themselves. So if you have a husband who's come home from the office and you're maybe going through a magazine at that point of time, you just have to drop the magazine and give the husband a glass of water and ask, do you want to have tea and things like that. um, I've seen people who had hobbies such as going for maybe a pottery class, and they just stop the pottery class saying, no, I don't have time because my husband comes back at this time and I have to be back home when he gets back home. They get so busy in dropping their children to school, bringing them back, dropping them at a hobby class, bringing them back from there. They don't think of alternatives. Many of my friends have done that. They don't think of alternatives, how to manage all of that and still achieve their objective and take out time for themselves. So they become like glorified maidservants, and for lack of a better word, some of the women turn into glorified maidservants. Not no time for themselves, no intellectual challenges, no physical challenges, and emotionally they start becoming unstable.
No, I'm glad you're talking openly about this, which I think is very important. Because one of the things we are doing at Hoopsters is having a program for parents called Rediscover the Me in the Parent. You know, because we believe that unless the parent gets back to what he or she likes, they can never really be a good parent. You know,
True.
like if the parent doesn't read, they'll never encourage child to read. If the parent is not an outdoor kind, the children never learn to be outdoor kinds. You know, these are difficult things, and or they'll not understand. So that's the whole reason why you are here and why you want to discuss where you are going or what you have done so far. But tell me one thing: you were in the 50s when you started running, right?
Yes.
One which I can't understand is what made you go into it at 50 to start running, okay? And why running? There are a million things you could have done.
Okay. uh, as I mentioned earlier, as a school child, I was never into any kind of sports. So innately, I don't really have that streak in me to go out and play or do certain things. I'd rather read a book or watch something. That was how I was conditioned, or study something. That's how I was conditioned. When I got married to an army officer, I picked up badminton, swimming, and I used to do walking. Later, I started some bit of gymming and aerobics also, but nothing outdoor. Then one day in the gym, we had some competitions that included running also. I won all the other competitions, but running was something I didn't do well at. And this was in 2013 sometime, and I was approaching my 50th birthday. I just thought that I would take part in Pune International Marathon. I'll run a 10 kilometer, and for that I would train. So I went out and I ran on the roads. And the very first day I ran 10 kilometers and I enjoyed that so much. It was like freedom for me. Being outdoors and that fresh breeze in the hair and things like that, it was a freedom from the four walls, because all my activities until then had been indoors, whether it was studies or theater or badminton or gymming, everything was indoors. That fresh air that I got from outside, that was really great for me. Running, I also feel, releases certain endorphins that give you a certain high. They make you a very happy person. That is what running does. The other thing is that you can run at any time of the day. Of course, one doesn't really go and run in the afternoon, although we do because we are ultra marathoners. But most runners run in the morning, early morning, or they run in run late evening. But in other countries, if you see, they do go out in the afternoon also and run. So running can be done at any time. You don't really need any equipment or a coach unless you have very high goals, specific goals. Then you need a coach. Otherwise, running is a very natural activity. Children also run. Nobody teaches them how to run. They just go out and run. Although I feel that as they grow, they forget how to run. So children are they should continue to run through the ages as they grow. That's one thing about running. The second thing I found in running is that you make a lot of friends. Nowadays, running has picked up a lot in India over the last 8 years that I've been running. I've seen that the running groups have grown, and almost every group in any major city, any locality in any major city has a running group. So we make a lot of running friends. That makes a very big difference, because most professionals, I feel, are restricted either to their home, their relatives, or their professional group. This gives them an opportunity to diversify and meet people from different levels of society and different types of communities, religions, castes, and playing different roles in life and different ages as well. So I get, of course, in my IT job also, I interacted with people who were maybe 30 years younger than me. But here, I interact with runners who are as young as 16 years old, and we are running on the same road. We are running the same events. So it really opens up your mind, and you build contacts also. Go out with a different circle of people, you make those friends. So I mean, I can go on and on about running and its benefits.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, you seem to be a perfect ambassador for to promote running. Okay. Well, I have a lot of friends who are runners and who participate in marathons and stuff like that. And I always wondered why they were so excited about running. You know, and I still got a friend who's 60 plus and doesn't look it, but he still runs some 10, 12 kilometers a day or something like that. So I mean, I know that you've made it clear that it's a lot more fun than what I think it is. I think more people should try it, or I should try it at least.
Yes.
That's where it should be. But tell you one thing, I'm coming back to the subject of today's talk. What made you take up running? When I'm saying that, I don't mean what happened in the process, but did you face any kind of claustrophobia at home with your family, or was there an urge in you to break free? Why did you take up something else? I mean, not just running, but why did you take up anything? Or when did you first start feeling the need for it?
Okay. So before running came a time when I was completely devoted to my job. And being in the IT sector, you really get involved. And if you start giving your time there, my job was, of course, my passion, and I loved what I was doing at my job. So what happens is that although the job may be an 8-hour job, but in IT, the work never ends. You just close, you have a plan, and you go and do the rest of it the next day. And if you keep getting involved in it, you get deeper and deeper. And in my interview at my last job, which I spoke about, I stayed there for 14 years in that job. In my interview, the CEO had asked me, Taru, what more can you do for the company? And that thought stayed in my mind through those 14 years. Every step of the way, I thought, what more can I do for my company? And I would go out of my way and take on more and more responsibilities. Of course, I was rewarded for it, and not just in terms of money, but reputation, the kinds of responsibilities I got, the roles I played, how my team grew. But from an 8-hour day, it would become a 10-hour day, and slowly the timelines just were wiped away. There were times when I would have calls at 5 a.m. and then the same night I would have call at 11 p.m. And because we have a lot of US clients, Australian clients, European clients in different countries, I would be spending a lot of time working, which, because it was my passion, I enjoyed it. And I had my family responsibilities also. So back then I thought I was a superwoman. So I had to do everything on my own. I had to do my cooking. I had a maid who would do the rest of the jhadu pocha stuff, but I would do the cooking on my own. And my daughter was also in college, so I kind of supervised her studies. Supervised in the sense, at least I used to tell her, okay, come on, sit down and study. Okay, give her the tea and coffee at night when she had to study, things like that. And I completely gave up on my gymming also. So it was work, house, and a few outings here and there, but it was mostly weekend to weekend that would happen. And I put on a lot of weight. I was about 17-18 kgs more than what I am right now. And my cholesterol also went up, and cholesterol went up much high above the high level. And at that time I was in the 40s, and that was a wake up call for me. And see, one doesn't realize what is happening to oneself. I was also getting very frustrated because I was not able to do anything other than all these things. So being a passion, I was working, but then I would see other,
Taru, we lost you. Yeah.
I would feel that I'm able to really focus on myself at all. And it's really frustrating when you see a very high cholesterol level at a young age. So then I said, okay, this is a wake up call for me. I need to give more time to myself. And that's when I chose to go back and do some gym activity. And then running came. As I said, it was very liberating, and it became such a passion for me that my mind started going more towards running and fitness. And running told me that I needed to build on my strength also. It told me I needed to build on my flexibility also. So I started doing yoga. I started doing strength training in the gym. And when I started doing all of these things, uh, my focus on my job started reducing automatically. I had a very good team. So because I had 250 people, and it is a hierarchical team, so I had about 12 managers reporting to me. I could delegate work to them, and they were doing things, and work was being done very smoothly. I was still getting my promotions, I was getting my hikes, and my bosses would have never come to know that that my mind is going off track from the work. Really, I was given more responsibilities because to provide a growth path to become a VP in the company. But the newer responsibilities that I got, this one time I found that my idea of learning is not going towards my professional path. Earlier I used to be very focused on learning, and I did my PMP, I did CSM, I did 3 levels of Spanish. Everything I studied then was focused towards my job. But now everything I read was focused towards fitness and learning. And I felt that I'm cheating my organization. That was the thought that came to my mind. And I knew that my boss is never going to come to know that this is the thought that has come to my mind, because work is still going to get completed. But my enthusiasm towards my job, it had shifted from the job to fitness. So and I was already, I think 50, 53, 54 at that point of time. And I had been talking about quitting the job since 2 or 3 years. My daughter had got married, and money as such was not such an important thing for me. So, and my passion was fitness then, and not my job. So I thought I cannot continue. It's injustice to my organization. It's injustice to my team, and I should focus on my passion, which is fitness.
But Taru, the subject of today's discussion is how you balanced
Yeah.
work life and how
Yeah.
marathons help you.
Yeah.
And you're talking of losing interest in your work. So is
Yeah.
there a balance we can bring out? So
Yeah.
what really
Yes.
happened?
Yeah, so this part that I'm talking about, quit my job, happened very fast, because as I said, it was about cheating the organization and justification for that. So that happened only in the last 6 months. But prior to those 6 months, I started running when um, for 3 or 4 years I ran while I was in the organization. So that means that at that point of time, I was able to balance both my work and my life, and passion was there for both. For 3 or 4 years it went in parallel. So bringing about this balance part of it between the two, initially, as I said, I had started working for 10 hours in the organization. Now what the organization mandates is only 8 hours. It does not mandate 10 hours. And I started working more because I immersed myself in it so much that I actually forgot that I'm also an individual. I need to look after myself, until I started facing those health issues and frustration over not being able to focus on myself. So then I decided that I have to streamline my life and I have to come back to those 8 hours and spend the rest of time on myself, because already my house was running and my family was running. The extra time was going into extra work that I was putting in. So I established this hierarchy in my team, and I started delegating more. These are some points that also came back in my appraisal feedback. So it's a common saying that you cannot be promoted until you bring in a second in line. You have to, if you stay indispensable, you'll never be promoted. So I brought in a second in line. That brought in some balance. I was not keeping control. I learned how to let go of that control authority and pass it on to others, delegate more. The second thing that I did is better planning. I was a planner earlier also, but better planning of my entire day. I had to do that. So if I had to run, if I wanted to go out and run, I knew that I would have to stop those late night TV shows and sleep early, so that I can wake up on time, get ready, go for a run. So the time wasters, I feel there are a lot of time wasters that we have in our life. Some people might not call them time wasters, but we have to recognize their value. The number of times one goes to WhatsApp and keeps checking random messages that are coming on WhatsApp groups, or goes on to Instagram and just keeps scrolling through the timeline, or Facebook and scrolling through the timeline. These are all time wasters. And I feel that one, just as one needs to restrict the work hours or the cooking hours or the playing hours, one also needs to restrict the screen hours in terms of entertainment. So I learned to do all that better, so that I would be better planned. The other thing that happened is that I gained a lot of confidence, because while running, one faces a lot of encumbrances, a lot of problems come in. I started running late, I had some running injuries also. Then when we go out for a run, during the run there are some known issues and there are some unforeseen issues that also come in. So we learn to overcome all these issues, and it makes us stronger. So now that I have run 100 kilometers ultra, I feel I have run 100 kilometers ultra, I can do anything. While I was working, I had gone and run a 50 kilometers ultra, and that itself, a 50-kilometer run which takes about 6 hours to do, it gives you so much of confidence. You go back into your organization, that confidence comes into you as a person. So I became a more confident person even at work. So every aspect of running, this socially meeting other people, I learned how to interact better with people of different levels. And my boss, in fact, after I started running, in my appraisal meeting, my boss said that, Taru, you must continue running because it's brought out a lot of positive changes in you. I was already at a senior manager level at that point of time. So he said, it's not that you don't have confidence, you already have confidence, you're a good planner, but I can see that you're doing all of these things much better. And that delegation part, he mentioned that I was delegating a lot more, for in a better sense, in a good sense of the way, than I was doing earlier. Uh, because I was focused on both the things at that point of time, I had started learning Spanish also, just to diversify, just to do something more beyond the IT job. All of these things came in very handy.
So how did your family react to you getting into this?
See, running, a lot of people, the moment you start running, they say, okay, but what about your knees? the first thing that comes up is, what about your knees? What about your injuries? Also, we need, we go out and run when it's in the dark. So my mother and my daughter and my sister, my parent side, everybody was very concerned about my health. Although I'm running for good health, everybody was concerned that it's going to affect my health in an adverse way in the long term. And just to convince them, I told them, okay, I'm going to run only one half marathon, one full marathon, and then I'm going to stop running. It's been 8 years now. I run 100 kilometers and I run 12-hour stadium runs. That's not happened, but that's happened. That's what happened on my Micah side. On my in-laws side, my mother-in-law is somehow my biggest fan. So that worked in my favor. And my husband also took up running. So we have become a running couple now. So that's how it's affected my family. It's affected my family very positively. My daughter doesn't run now. She goes for walks regularly now, and she doesn't live with us. So she doesn't get really exposed to this side of running. My sister-in-law started running. My brother-in-law, his son also started running. My niece also runs a little. So I feel that running has helped my entire family, the extended family. The concerns everybody had was generally related to security. What time I'm running, where I'm running. So there was a lot of advice on when to run, when not to run, which of course I take with a pinch of salt. Of course, they have something good in their mind. Of course, they care, and that's why they say all these things. From family perspective, it's been good.
Nice. Uh, okay, since you're talking about your running, tell us some highs and lows of your running career.
Highs and lows of running career.
I mean, the issues you faced, the happiness you got, and joy
Okay.
out there.
Okay. The issues, see, issues mostly that we face are twofold. One is a person and one is a woman. So the issues are different in running as a person and as a woman. As a woman, basic thing, as I said, security. So there was a time when I was running a 100-kilometer run in Pune itself, and this was a loop of 25 kilometers, and we had to run along a canal route, and we had to run along a field, and we had to run on the road. And in ultra marathons, maybe most of the people know, but just for information, there are very few runners who run ultra marathon. So there are times when maybe about 500 meters ahead of you and maybe a kilometer behind you, there's nobody, and you're running alone on the road. And this was when this incident happened, that a motorcyclist came from behind. He crossed me, went ahead, and then suddenly I saw a motorcyclist coming from the front, and he hit me on the shoulder and went past. So I turned around and in the choicest words, I yelled at this person. But that was an incident that actually shook me up for a moment. I was very angry and frustrated because what I wanted to do was to run behind that guy. If I had my way, I would have caught his motorcycle so that he would fall and given him one or two laughs at that point of time. But I was very frustrated. I continued with my run. I completed my 100 kilometers. So as women, I feel a lot of women, this was the only incident that happened to me, but a lot of women face some other issues also, for which we take precautions. So what we try to do is that we run in groups, or we try to avoid the shady or dark areas, carry some pepper spray, or if we find that some place is dangerous, we take a different route. The other issue that we face as women is that of washrooms or toilets. In India now, of course, a lot of places we have public toilets, although they aren't really as clean as they should be. Abroad, there are toilets everywhere. I run in Melbourne, and it's so easy to run over there. Here, washrooms and toilets are a very big problem for women, and for men too, for that matter. But then they just go by the roadside, and although that's not a very healthy thing to do, but then that's what they do. These are the issues that I face as a woman. Sometimes I have to restrict my clothing also to a specific type, depending on where I'm running. So for example, if I'm running in Hyderabad, in some Toli Chowki kind of a place, or just any place. I'm running in a place where there are slightly orthodox people living, then I have to wear capris and a t-shirt with sleeves, even if it is very, very warm. But if I'm running here around here where I run in Pune, I wear my comfortable clothes, racerback tees I can wear shorts and run. um, as other These are the trivial things that we face. The other things, issues that I faced are mostly injuries, because when I started running I was very enthusiastic, but my body was not conditioned, my muscles were not ready to take on that load. So I should have done a lot more of core and strength training, and then gradually increased my running. So I faced some injuries, and I mean, now I'm like a medical dictionary. So I know that I can have plantar fasciitis, I can have Achilles issues, I can have compartment syndrome, I even had piriformis syndrome. So these are the different kinds of issues I had from time to time, and then I learned a lot from them. I learned quite a lot, and now I'm able to moderate my training. Also, I was very enthusiastic. I've never confessed this before, but because of my age, and fewer people running at that age, I used to get a lot of podiums. So I would participate in an event and I would finish among the first three women in the age category, maybe in the 40 plus or the 45 plus age category. So I would get a trophy for that, and sometimes there was a cash prize also. In the very initial years, this was very, very tempting for me, and I would register for too many events and run too much. This also caused injuries. Now again, maturity, I've become, now I can claim that I'm a mature runner, and even if I register for events, then I take them as a training run and gradual scaling up run. And now I'm an ultra runner also, so I cannot really race these smaller events as much. Other issues were that actually I wouldn't call it an issue. I would also call it a benefit. I had a very poor eating lifestyle. Still, it's not what I would want it to be, but running forced me to start eating healthy. Because if I didn't eat well, I would, again, my muscle recovery wouldn't happen, because I was eating junk, or I was not eating enough proteins, or I was not taking my required carbohydrates before the run, or because I ate something wrong, I got a stomach upset in the morning, and that affected my run. I also did another thing when I started running, which I wasn't doing regularly, because nobody really told me that. Is that I got my B12, D3, calcium, and all these levels checked. And when I got them checked, I found that my B12 was very low, my D3 was very low. And this is nothing surprising, because most of us Indians, if we go and get them checked, we'll find that these levels are low. It's just that we don't find that out in regular life, but when you start running, this starts impacting your running also. So started adopting a more healthier lifestyle because I was running, and because I started doing that, my family also was impacted positively by that. So because I started eating healthier, my husband started eating healthier. My mother-in-law, when she comes to me, she says, Taru, that salad that you make, I really love that salad. And she goes and tells everybody in the house that this is a particular salad. It's a mix of fruits and vegetables and sprouts. I eat this salad very often. So these are the benefits, pros, cons, everything that I've spoken about.
No, I mean, listening to you, I mean, I would look at two sides here. Listening to you with all the injuries, that, the problems or whatever, it would scare a lot of people away. You know what I mean? Oh my God, good night, healthy khana, you can get this injured, it can get worse, you can get molested or jo bhi hai, all those things. Now, what would you tell these people who possibly have negative thoughts listening to all that you're saying? See, you had a smile on your face when you said it, which means you're enjoying what you're doing, which is a wonderful thing. But
Yes.
for an outsider who doesn't know what it is, and listening to you saying that I got this very big medical terms for all the injuries that you faced, I would possibly get scared and not run or prevent others from running. What would you tell these people?
Yeah. I think it's a commonly said thing which even our people here who've joined us would have heard, that sitting is the new smoking. So, sitting is the new smoking. So, the amount that we sit these days, it's more likely to kill us and give us injuries than a little bit of running that we can do in the morning. And we sit for something like 8 hours in the entire day for running. In defense of running, I would say the best thing to do to avoid injury when one is running is to scale up very slowly and very carefully. And as I said, running is a natural activity. We see even children running. So one should not really go and start running very fast or too much distance. And you will never be injured if you do something like this. Of course, you need to also strengthen your muscles for that. So anybody who runs has to develop a balance in terms of exercises. Do some bit of strengthening. First of all, warm up well before running. Run a small distance, scale up slowly, increase speed slowly, eat well, rest well, sleep well. The moment you have a niggle, consult somebody who knows better than you, or just simply give it rest for 3 days, it might become better. Stretch, do proper stretches, do some bit of strengthening of the core and the muscles, and you will not get a single injury. There are friends, I have friends who have been running for 14 years without any injury at all. See, injuries are a part of life, they will happen, they're there, but to what extent they happen and when you arrest them, it's up to you. Now, some people learn from other people's mistakes, some people learn from their own mistakes. In my case, I've learned from my own mistakes, but there are people, and I have taken risks. See, one takes calculated risks, and sometimes those risks go wrong also. So maybe some of the risks have gone wrong. But if you're not you don't take too many risks, and you're conservative, you're running 5 to 10 kilometers, doing it only for fitness, you will not get injured.
But Taru, in your case, you had a supportive husband, supportive mother-in-law, and you were supporting. But most of the people out there do not have that support. So how do they get back to discovering themselves?
Yes. I was also, despite having a supportive husband and a supportive family, I was also frustrated at a point of time, and I was not able to take out time. And that the reason for that is that I thought I was a superwoman and I wanted to do it all by myself. And the guilt factor is that if I don't do this, what will people say? If I don't cook, what will people say? My husband will remain hungry. He was used to homemade food for so many years. We have to enlist help, we have to enlist support, and at times we have to put our foot down also, and people will listen. The more we keep giving up, the more we are wallowing in self pity, and we are getting into that habit. So it's up to us to convince and train our family in certain respects. We have to make people independent. So if somebody can't go for a run because the husband has to be given tea in the morning, husband can be sweetly and nicely, a wife can train the husband to make the morning tea by himself, and wives have the means to do that, definitely. So the husband will make the tea for himself, and wife can go for a short run and come back. I know couples who have one child who's 3 years old and another child, a newborn, maybe just 2 or 3 months old, and yet both of them work out. They take days. So 3 days in a week, the wife goes out for a run, and 4 days in a week, the husband goes out to the gym. So that's how planning and mutual understanding can be brought out. So the days she goes out for the runs, he looks after the two children in the morning. It's a matter of taking out 1 hour. And I would implore everyone, all husbands and wives and children, to understand this, that as long as we take out 1 hour for ourselves, we are going to be so much happier and so much content that we'll do all our responsibilities in a far happier mood, and the whole family will turn out to be happier. So I think it's a matter of planning and mindset and convincing others, and just taking out that much time. You don't need too much time. Maybe sleep lesser, maybe watch lesser TV. I mean, some sacrifice you can make, the entire family as a whole, and children need to be more independent in that case.
And what you're talking about is, I mean, definitely it's possible. I know it's possible. But you know, thing, we need to build a kind of awareness towards these things, you know, because there is still a stigma, like we discussed earlier in the program, where we talked about guilt factor. There is still a guilt factor. There is still stigma around being individuals in your lives. You know, I know friends of mine, I know people in my own age group who are by the time they touch 50, they said, now we are retired. Now to relax. You know, we have finished all our responsibilities. We have settled our children, you know, and they are all in the same mood of being settled or, you know, having finished the responsibilities in their life. How do we get to break this whole attitude? How do we get to break this stigma? What can we do? Because it needs to be done. Well, I think after 50 is where you can contribute back to yourself and to the society, especially to yourself. You know? Because you have learned so much in the 50 years, you can do so much more in your life later. But most people give up, and that's why they are, you know, they look older than they should be looking. You know, that's the biggest problem. How do we break these standards? How do we create awareness? See,
I think this is more.
I'll just go some more things. See, when I talk to people, they say there are enough social media groups, there is this group, but all my research has shown that that is not really bringing about a change. That's not really leading to a transformation. It's just a listing of people who belong to the particular passion, you know, interest group.
Mm-hmm.
So how does one create change? Because ultimately, Hoopsters is all about bringing about the change.
Yeah, in this case, I feel that organizations, societies, institutions can provide the required exposure. So this is one kind of exposure, that you look at somebody who's what you are already doing, that you expose a group of parents and students to people who have broken the barriers and gone beyond the usual thing and done something different. That's one way that can certainly motivate them. But then within 2 or 3 days, if they don't really take action, the impact is lost. So
Right.
action needs to be taken by the individuals themselves. The second thing is that the institutions themselves can run programs for these people. In fact, nowadays a lot of running groups have come up, and even societies can do this. And a lot of small events are being held in cities. And these events are not for runners like, say, me, who wants to run 50 kilometers or 21 kilometers or 10 kilometers. There are organizations who are holding events, say a 3 kilometer walk, a 5 kilometer walk, or they are running groups who are getting people together, and they're just going on a trek. Now my husband and his course mates, his army course mates, we've now formed a trekking group, and once a month, which is not too much, but at least once a month, we go out on a trek together. So this can be done by individuals, and a group mechanism, I think group psychology always works in this case. So if groups can come together, and group, I don't mean, doesn't have to be 20 people, it can be a group of 5 people. Even 2 people are a group. So if you can have a walk buddy, you'll go ahead for it. And have a rewarding mechanism for yourself. You have to be exposed to what you're doing and what are the returns that you're getting, and a holistic approach towards it. You have to be able to enjoy what you're doing, and it doesn't have to be running, mind you. It can be learning another language, doing pottery, or going for some cooking class. That itself will give a break from the routine. And this is especially for those, I would say this is especially for those who have retired. So Hoopsters and other such organizations, if with the help of professionals or those who enjoy it, if you can organize certain kind of online workshops or maybe in-person workshops in different places. For example, as I would love to conduct some kind of yoga or maybe strength training, if people are willing to join. just 2 or 3 days in a week for maybe half an hour, and that itself gives them a kind of an exposure. They don't have to go anywhere. They're doing from the house, and gradually when they develop an interest, they can start going for classes elsewhere. I think society has to contribute, and people who themselves are doing have to come out and do it.
Correct. The biggest problem here is either laziness or procrastination. Now, how does one overcome these two things? I mean, procrastination is the bigger story. When you keep pushing things away. So, what would you advise them?
See, and anything that is left to tomorrow doesn't happen. So it has to start today. So the ones who are attending the session now, they might have something very, very important to do in the rest of the evening. But if they can take out just 10 minutes and go out for a walk today, tonight, maybe after dinner or before dinner, just 10 minutes. And I'm sure nobody can say that I can't take out even 10 minutes for myself between now and say maybe 11 p.m. or whatever time it might be. It has to start now. Procrastinate, the moment you leave it, it's not going to happen. And once you start, you decide, I'm going to do, the moment you say I'm going to work out for 1 hour every day, it's chances are you will not do it. Do it in chunks and start doing that. Start with something simple that you enjoy, maybe even something that you were doing years ago and you have left it out. Could be even playing snakes and ladders. That itself has shows that you can take out 10 minutes for yourself, and then start going for walks. Maybe do a 10 minutes run. You don't have to do it every day. Do it just 5 days in a week, and then see where in your entire schedule you can take out time. Don't we take out time definitely every day? This hour to this hour is my office job. So like that, maybe you say that every morning 6 to 6:30 I'm going to do something for myself and some physical activity, because I see I'm insisting on physical activities a lot, because reading, intelligence, all that we focus on through our lives because of our jobs. Our studies and jobs will make us do those intellectual activities in any case. They take away from physical activities. They take us far from physical activities. So I say take out time for some physical activity, maybe half an hour every day slot, and that time should be religious for you. Try to do it. But if you miss it, then don't say that, "Arey, ab to miss ho gaya, now chhoot gaya, now I'm never going to do it again." Try to take out that time the same day. If you can't take out time the same evening, never mind. Just one day has gone. A lot of time in your life has been lost like that. Go ahead with the rest of the schedule, which is what we say about diet plans also. I mean, or maybe for even work, you can't really, if you missed out on some things over 2 days, you can't really pile it on and keep doing the same thing. You have to move on and find ways to overcome that. Reward
Taru, I
yourself.
think, oh yes, I think that's a life needs to reward yourself. I think it's time we all rewarded ourselves. But we got people, okay, to everybody in the audience, we actually got some participants. So, any questions, feel free to ask. Dr. Bala, I think you have something to ask. Please come online, put your video on and your audio on, and you can ask a question. Yes, ma'am. You can put your video on also.
Yeah, I am Dr. Bala. I was a professor in Madras University. It's Taru, it's so nice to hear so nice to hear from you your experiences on your pastime or hobby or whatever it is, which has given you a lot of spirit and so much. But what I would like to know is, was there anything or anybody who was obstructing your interest? You wanted to do it, and how your mother, sister, and others supporting you, you were telling. But was there anyone who was obstructing your interest in this, and how you were able to tackle it?
Dr. Bala, actually, my mother, sister, and even daughter were initially completely against it.
Oh.
And later on they came around and they're proud of me, although they still tell me I do too much of it and I should reduce, but reduce the running. But they were all against it initially, and I went and talked to them and I told them that this is something that I need to do and it makes me happy and I will take the required precautions. And they understood this point then.
See, I am 83. I may not be running like this. And even walking when I was big, after this corona, I'm walking only at home only.
Yes.
In the hall from that stretch to this stretch, I am doing it. But for persons like me, what do you suggest? I cannot run.
Dr. Bala, I must say you are an inspiration.
Oh my God.
Considering that you are walking, my mother is also 83 to be exact. And my mother also used to walk a lot outside, but she had a fall and she has a hip problem now. So she cannot go out for walks. She also walks inside the house and she does her evening 15 minutes of walk. So what she does is that when she gets up in the morning, she spends 40 minutes in bed exercising
Oh.
every single day. So she simple exercises like lying down on the bed and cycling with her legs.
Oh.
So she's flat on the back, her back is flat on the bed, and she's cycling with her legs. She also does glute bridges on the bed. She turns around and she also does bhujangasana on the bed. So there are, and she does a lot of yoga, but she does it on the bed, most of it when she's lying down on her back. And then she does her arms exercises. If you want, we can have a one-on-one sometime and I can tell you the entire sequence that she goes through. She does 40 minutes of exercises like this, and then she also does pranayam in the evening.
I do pranayama.
Yeah.
Small exercise.
Dr. Bala is very interesting. She is one of the authorities on traditional games of India.
Okay.
And we have been in touch for quite some time, and we're hoping to take traditional games to schools and other things. So hopefully that will be one kind of activity.
Okay, she's even more inspiring now. I already found her as an inspiration. It's very nice to talk to her.
Thank you, Taru. All the best for you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bala.
Anybody else out there has any questions to ask? Yeah. So
I have one more thing to share.
Sure, please.
About running. There was a time when I had a bit of an injury on my hip due to running. It was not due to running. It was due to strength training that I overdid, but it stopped me from running. So I had to take a 3 months break from running. And I had gotten so used to running that I found this a little frustrating. And then I realized that running is not the be all and end all. And that's the time I took to cycling as well, because it did not interfere with cycling. And I started doing more core training and strengthening of glutes. So these 3 months, actually, I also realized the value of running, because I realized it had become such a passion for me that I wanted to go back to it so much that I was taking care of myself so much more. I stopped wearing high heels because high heels are not so great. And for my entire life until I turned 49, I was on high heels from the time I was in the 8th standard. So these are not really big sacrifices, but there are small things, small tweaks that we have to make in our lives.
I want to ask you one question, which always I ask my friends who are into running. They seem almost addicted to it.
Yeah.
Okay, why does it happen?
This is because running releases the happy hormones. It releases endorphins, and they make a person very happy. So we don't need any drug. We don't need to watch any happy movie. We just need to go out and have a run. It clears the thought. After a point while you're running, you go into a meditative state. I don't sit and do meditation. For me, running is my meditation.
Oh,
And it's not just physical fitness that it gives me a lot of mental strength, and it improves me as an individual. It makes me a better individual, a more holistic person, who a better human being in the society.
That's
but
nice. I
meditation,
think we have one Rajat wants to ask something.
Okay.
but meditation will help us, people like us, more. Is it not?
Yeah, ma'am, you can put your video on. Yeah. Rajat Mathur, do you want to ask something? Your mic is on. Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
ma'am. You have anything to ask?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you be a bit
Okay.
louder, please?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to ask, great hearing you, Taru. Very, very inspiring, message from you. I wanted to ask if, while running, do you get pain in your knees? You mentioned sometime that, people are worried about, that you get knee problem and this. So how did you address that? Uh, you know, just wanted to check that. Yeah.
Yeah, see, when you overdo anything, it can result in injuries. So, initially, in the initial days, I did get some bit of knee problem, and actually, see, knee is a joint, and when you get knee problem, what it indicates is that the muscles around it are not really strong enough to support the knee. So whenever I got a little bit of pain in the knee, I would ice my knees, and I focused on strengthening my quadriceps, my hamstrings, and my calves, as well as my glutes. So when I strengthened these parts of my lower body, the entire kinetic chain became better. So I think that knees are not really so much of a problem, unless of course there's something wrong with the meniscus or the ACL or the LCL, that's torn or something. But running, in fact, I feel improves the condition of the knees. My husband used to had a knee problem, and he used to run with kneecaps. He was told by a coach, just remove your kneecaps, otherwise your knees are never going to become stronger. And now he runs. When he started running, he was scared of running 5 kilometers. Now he runs 100 kilometers, and his knees are just fine. And before he started running, he had a lot of knee issues.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks, Rajat. Anybody has any questions?
Yeah. Hello, sir. This is Amarpal.
Can you put your video on, please? Okay, can you put your video on? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, hi. This is Amarpal Singh Kolisari.
There's a lot of
Hi,
audio
this is Amar.
disturbance.
Yeah, can you hear me clearly, sir?
Can you hold that mic straight? I think it's rubbing against something.
Okay. Now it's clear?
Yeah, much better.
Yeah. Hi, Taru ma'am. This is Amarpal. We met in, I guess, 2019-20. There was an event in Pune. Pune में event था अदिति गार्डन में. मैंने 24 hours run के लिए register किया था. I was running 24 hours, and the first time I met you.
Okay.
You with your husband, and we had a snap. मेरे पास शायद photo भी होगा. Definitely, it was a very great moment. So that was my first. I did 122 kilometers run that time. So definitely, आप हमारे लिए definitely inspiration हो. And अच्छा लगता है. See, we both are into a same the same. आप भी मैराथन करते हैं, मैं भी करता हूँ, अल्ट्रा रन साथ में करते हैं. बट जब एक दूसरे को हम देखते हैं तो वो जैसे बोलते हैं ना, जोश आ जाता है. एक्स्ट्रा पावर यू गेट, यू फील लाइक, बिकॉज देखिए मेरा तो ठीक है एज, और मेरे एज और आपकी एज में डिफरेंस बहुत है. और जब हम लोग देखते हैं कि आप अपनी ये एज में इतना करते हैं, तो हमें भी लगता है कि हमारा जब तक वो एज आएगा, हम वैसे ही स्ट्रांग होने चाहिए और वैसे ही अच्छा परफॉर्मेंस करना चाहिए. तो डेफिनेटली यू आर इंस्पिरेशन फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस, और हमारे लिए भी हो, मेरे लिए भी हो स्पेशली. एंड मैं तो यही प्रे करूंगा यार कि आप कीप रनिंग, कीप इंस्पायरिंग, और आप ऐसे ही बढ़ते रहो. साथ साथ हमें भी वो ब्लेसिंग्स आपसे कंडक्ट करोगे तो हम भी उस तरीके से रन करते रहें. Nothing much. Thank you.
Amarpal, nice seeing you after having such a long chat the other night.
Yeah, yes.
You know, AK, I didn't relate it to
जी
Amarpal.
हमने बात किया था.
Yeah, Mr. Amarpal is also You call the Iron Man. He's got that Iron Man.
Iron Man Malaysia.
That takes force by itself. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you and know that you're here listening to this talk.
Man,
He's got an amazing story. We'll soon get him on the interview. Yeah. Anybody else, any questions? Okay. Taru, anything else you want to say as for the viewers who are going to watch this tomorrow?
For everybody, I would just say that age is no bar at all for taking up any activity. I took up running in my 50th year. I became serious with yoga in my 53rd year. I learned to do headstands in the 53rd year. Now I can hold it for about 7 minutes. I think that we need to take out time for ourselves, get over that guilt factor. First thing is get over that guilt factor. Take up some physical activity. If you take up running, it's easy to do that. I'll advocate running because I'm a runner myself. You will be very happier, and a happy person, a happy woman especially, translates into a happy family. Healthy habits adopted by a woman are percolated through the entire family. So that will go on to the next generation. Of course, that doesn't mean that the men should not be doing this. The men also should be doing it. And parents need to lead by example. If we want to give a holistic lifestyle experience to our children, we ourselves have to give them exposure to different kinds of experiences through different avenues so that they can choose to do what they are best in. Maybe if I had become a runner as a child, I don't know where I would have gone, or maybe I would have got injured earlier. But whatever happens, happens for the best. But don't look at age, don't look at any condition. Pick up something that can become your passion other than regular work, something that you're doing just for yourself.
That's a nice way to end. Okay, before we end this, I have one question to ask you, and that will be the last question, and we're running out of time. Is what does it feel like to complete a 100-kilometer run?
It feels like I've conquered the world. It feels like that. And through the run, you go through different stages of the run. Towards the end of the run, you think that, okay, bus, this is the last run. I'm not going to run 100K again. And the moment you finish the 100K run, you think, okay, which is the next longer event that I'm going to run? So you're euphoric. I cannot sleep the night after a 100-kilometer run. A 100-kilometer run takes, for a person like me, takes about 14 hours. That means I've stayed awake through the day, or I've stayed awake through the night to run it. But I'm so high on those endorphins. I'm so happy. It lasts so many days. It's like I'm on top of the world, and there's nothing in this world that I can't do if I put my mind to it.
That's wonderful. The glow on your face said it all. Okay, you do not explain it. Anyway, thank you, Taru, for coming on the show, and we wish you the very best in your future endeavors. And if anybody out there watching this video, you want to share your journey in life that has brought about a change in your life as an individual and the society around you, please feel free to contact us. There's a lot of stuff that's going on at Hoopsters, and we would love you to be part of it. So thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Take care.
Thank you, Bala. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you all the participants. I'm glad. I hope you enjoyed it. There's so much to learn from each of us. So please feel free to share and keep checking up hoopsters.in. Thanks, Taru. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bala. Thanks for inviting me. I enjoyed this.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Trust me. I know what I can sound very intelligent with all my marathon friends. So thank you very much. Take care.